Thank you, Pete. That's Pete Fountain in the background with the whole truth. We're going to try to squeeze in another number before we get out of here, maybe late in the show tonight. My next guest is one of the country's most famous and dynamic trial lawyers. In fact, he has a distinguished legal career, and those of you who are familiar with the television show that was on for some seasons, Sam Benedict, was based on a good part on his career. He's written a new book called A Reasonable Doubt, in which he states his definite opinions, speaks out rather boldly and provocatively on a whole number of subjects, from the narcotics addict to censorship to the Fifth Amendment to divorce and etc. He's an extremely interesting man. Would you welcome, please, Mr. Jake Ehrlich. Good evening, Counselor.
Good evening.
I always hear that. They say that on television all the time.
Not on the Sam Benedict show, they don't.
They don't say that. Why do they always say it in those other series? Counselor all the time.
Well,
Do lawyers talk to each other that way?
No. You ought to hear lawyers talk to each other.
This is a most fascinating book. As I mentioned to you briefly in the little time we had to say hello before the program, I get probably 30 or 40 books a month from people who appear on the show, and most of them you don't have a chance to really look through. You look some of the highlights. And I set up the last 2 nights with this book and called A Reasonable Doubt and got so fascinated. I guess the lay people who don't know much about the workings of the law, this is all fascinating.
I'm glad you like it,
what you do. Most interesting. One statement you had in here, it says when you are defending somebody, you say the first thing that you tell them is never plead guilty.
Never plead guilty. Every man's entitled to a trial. He's presumed to be innocent until the contrary is proved to a moral certainty beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's his right under the law, and he ought to avail himself of that right.
So never
plead
guilty.
Let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
What is your name? What is your name?
I refuse to answer. No. My name is Johnny Carson.
How do you know that to be your name?
Well, it's on a birth certificate, legally recorded.
That's hearsay.
That's hearsay?
Well, of course.
Well, I mean, if it's legally recorded?
That's still hearsay. Suppose you were born, and I must assume that you were born because you're here tonight with us. There's a certificate made out not by you, certificate made out by somebody else. That a boy child was born to Mr. and Mrs. Carson, and that he was named Johnny.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that you know that to be the fact. That means you have read that to be the fact. Right?
Yeah, I see what you mean. In other words, I only have to go by what is recorded.
You're pleading guilty to something that you don't know of your own knowledge.
In other words, I should have said, if somebody asked me who I am, I say I plead not guilty, right off. It doesn't go quite that far.
Not that
plead
far.
Not guilty. I see what you mean. That is hearsay. I'm only
hearsay.
accepting what somebody has said.
What somebody else has said.
But that would be legal. I mean, if you come in with a birth certificate, that proves you're more.
Well, birth certificates are legal until they're attacked and proved to be invalid. That has happened, too.
I get such a kick out, I think, about the second chapter of the book on new lawyers who start when they are trying to question a client and the things that they learn in court by not over-questioning or going too far. There are a couple of... Give me a couple of illustrations.
That's very dangerous. That's very dangerous. The apocryphal story is about the defense lawyer who's defending a fellow for driving while drunk. And the officer took the stand, and district attorney asked him a question, and he said, yes, the defendant was drunk. All right. You're a witness, he says to the defense. The defense says, how long have you been in the police department? He says, 1 year. Well, then he should have stopped right there. But he says, well, just a police officer for 1 year? Does that give you the authority and the learning and the experience to say that my client was drunk from what you observed? He says, oh, no. Well, then what was your reason? Oh, bartending for 18 years.
In other words, quit when you're ahead.
Quit when you're ahead. Quit when you get a no answer or a yes answer, the case may be.
You lose cases.
Yeah,
all lawyers lose cases.
Sure.
Well, when you're defending somebody, say in a criminal action, say it's a capital case, there's so many lawyer shows on television, and I'm sure they can be no more closer to the truth, most of them, than...
Most of them are pretty close, yes.
Do you feel really bad if you lose a case? I mean, especially if it's...
I am the most miserable human being on earth when I lose. I go into that trial to win because I believe in it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in it. And when I do the best I know how and something goes wrong, I suffer. But you've got to put yourself in your client's shoes, you know.
What about the lie detector? We were talking about this device one night.
No, the lie detector is hokum and it's bunk. It's like threatening somebody with a bullwhip. They say to a man, "Will you take a lie detector test?" Now, you can't use the results of a lie detector test in the courtroom.
Uh-huh.
The lie detector depends on a piece of machinery, depends on the person asking the questions. It depends on the physical condition of the person of whom the questions are asked. And it depends also on whether the connections between the machine and the person are put in the proper place.
It really takes a tremendously trained person to handle
Yes,
this, doesn't it?
but there are none. There are none.
There was a case in the paper the other day where some little girl had gone in for a secretarial job in Washington, the government, and they strapped a lie detector on her, and some guy who'd been with the department for, 2 weeks with this machine was asking her all kinds of personal questions and so on.
Certainly, but what they use it for, it's an instrument of fear. They say, now, if you're not guilty of this, well, why don't you take the lie detector test? In other words, indirectly making you testify against yourself.
And nobody has to testify against himself.
No, nobody has to testify against himself. Now, you find, I've seen some of these lie detector tests, and I think the fellow who was taking them in this particular series, he should have been convicted of some crime or other, mopery or something, because it was terrible what he did to this poor unfortunate.
How do we do away with things like that?
Well, we don't accept them in the law. We don't have anything to do with them.
And yet still people are kind of coerced into...
They're coerced into it because they feel if they say that, well, I won't take it, why, that indicates that something wrong. And it's a very bad thing.
But is there any way possibly that you can't, by law, get rid of people using lie detectors?
There's no law for it and no law against it.
But you would advise...
If anyone asked me to take a lie detector test, as we use that term commonly, nothing doing.
In other words, would you advise the average person not to take a lie detector test?
I would advise everybody not to take it. It's of no value in the courtroom. It can't do you any good. Why take something that you've got a 100% chance of losing? Can't do you any good and you can't win.
That makes sense. We'll do this when we'll be back. We've got some more things to talk about. And now a few words about Glidden homogenized spread satin, the big difference in wall paint that makes it so easy to use. Notice how this paint covers.
Fantastic. Hardly needs stirring at all.
Now, Glidden vinyl acrylic spread satin is homogenized. It's creamy smooth, lets you cut preparation time.
By Jiminy. This paint goes on real fast and easy. Now, why can't all paints be that smooth?
Now, Glidden spread satin is homogenized, easier to apply. Special tests prove its smooth, easy flow, the way it clings to brush or roller.
Amazing. I must be getting good. No brush marks.
Now, Glidden spread satin is homogenized, won't leave brush or lap marks.
Well, I'll be. This paint goes on over everything.
Now, Glidden spread satin is homogenized. Use it on walls, woodwork, or wallpaper anywhere in your home. From every point of view, the easy paint for lazy people is now easier than ever to use. New Glidden spread satin, now homogenized.
As to who you
Yeah, and Henry says there's a reasonable doubt as to who I am, and you may be right there. Let's talk about the Fifth Amendment a little bit, because this is a term that has been bandied around very much in the last few years, because I guess the great deal of congressional investigating committees, and where people have said, I refuse to answer. It's almost become a gag now. But
It is the let's start with the congressional committees, if you don't mind, Johnny.
Right.
Now, visualize this situation that a committee is organized at the request of some senator, let us say. And he is now going to investigate some particular subject that he has chosen.
Well, let's just take the entertainment business.
Oh, the entertainment business. Yes, there's been something going on about that. And he decides to sit up, and they put the cameras up around the room, and they call John Doe in. Now, in the first place, the mere fact that they call John Doe, the people say, uh-huh. Why John Doe? Why not Richard Rhodes? You see? They can't walk you into a courtroom that way, but they can bring you before the committee.
In other words, in a court of law, they would have to have some reasonable
file an
reason.
indictment or arrest you in the commission of an act or file an information or complaint.
But a Senate committee can actually just say, I subpoena so-and-so, and you must come in and answer questions.
You come on in.
All right.
And if you don't come in, the United States Marshal will go and get you. Now they now bring you in. And they say, now, Mr. John Doe, how long have you been connected with the entertainment world? I've been in 30 years. Well, did you know that there is such a thing as overcharging for tickets? Oh, yes. And did you go along with that? Well, what could I do? I couldn't do anything about it. Well, you're in the theatrical business. You got a theater, too, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yes. You're in the theatrical business. You got a theater. You know that they're overcharging. You know that they're robbing the people. And you say you can't do anything about it. Tell me why, Mr. John Doe. Why can't you do anything about it? Now, John Doe has now been held up to ridicule before the people who are watching the cameras. And John Doe hasn't done a thing. John Doe merely is a hard-working man. He owns this little theater, and he is now put in the light of a man who's conspiring in some way or other to overcharge people for admission to his theater. Well, now, if John Doe says, gentlemen, I refuse to testify, then the senator will say, you refuse to testify for what reason, on what ground? Now, John Doe is there all by himself. There's nobody there to help him. Well, he says, I guess I just don't want to get into this. Well, that's no reason. And suddenly the American John Doe thinks of, take 5. He says on the Fifth Amendment. Well, now, wait a minute. How can you refuse to testify because the Fifth Amendment, you've got nothing to worry about, have you, John? No. Well, then why don't you testify? Well, I'm not going to testify. Now, John may not want to say that one of the men selling tickets overpriced in violation of that particular ordinance might be a friend of his, might be a relative of his, you see. So now John Doe has committed no crime, has done nothing that he ought not to do, violated no law, doesn't want to hurt Sam Spivens or whoever it is. Now John Doe is now cited into court to show cause why he shouldn't be held in contempt of the committee for using the Fifth Amendment. And there, some time ago, was a book put out by a United States senator. Most all of the book had to do with the committee hearings, a rehash.
Mm-hmm.
And there was only one chapter in the book was worth considering. And that was where he said that too many people were availing themselves of the right under the Fifth Amendment. Well, if the Fifth Amendment is not good law, if we are to be called criminals because we use it, well, then let's take it out of the Constitution. Let's get rid of it. Now, you will recall history, or the reading of history, rather, that we had some difficulties with Great Britain about Star Chamber proceedings where they brought you in, sat you down, and gave you a rough time to make you testify. That's why we put that in there.
In other words, the Fifth Amendment was set up to keep people from testifying against themselves. In other words, no person can be allowed to testify
That's right.
against
That's
himself.
right.
Now, is that a good amendment?
Certainly it's good.
Then why has this slur been attached to it?
Because of the way it is applied, Johnny. I am now the senator from Chocomo, and I have ambitions. Now, there's no way that I can get on these machines quicker, except on the Johnny Carson show, but no way quicker than by organizing a committee and investigating something of some general interest. They investigated crime, all the crime in the world. Johnny, how many cases were prosecuted in the court of law?
None that I know of.
But look at the record of how many people they've smeared and destroyed, how many families they've ruined.
There are people now who cannot get a job in this country.
No, can't get a job.
Not only in the entertainment industry, because they pleaded the Fifth Amendment. Now, whether they were guilty of anything is not the case at all. But suppose someone many years ago, when there were a lot of popular organizations, that nobody knew what they were, and people seem to forget that during the war, we were an ally of Russia, and many people, it could have been possible for me or anybody to join some organization, Friends of So-and-so, on the surface, a well-meaning cause. And so you joined it, maybe you went to a meeting, maybe you didn't, but you just maybe signed up for it, you were on a letterhead. Now you were called in, as you say, in front of a committee, and he says, did you attend a meeting of so-and-so in 1938? All right, if he says, yes, I did. He says, who else was in attendance?
Right.
Now, I don't know what I would do in that position, but I certainly don't think you would want to turn around and enumerate 10 people that you know who were there.
Johnny,
so you say, I refuse to testify on the grounds, and you're dead anyway.
If you said that there was just one other person.
Yeah, there's Henry Morgan, say, for example.
Henry Morgan. Then there's a conspiracy between Johnny Carson and Henry Morgan to violate this law. Now, you may have been in this meeting, never even discussed it. You may have been talking about girls or something beautiful or anything you choose, nothing about this matter. But now the moment that you say, yes, I was there, who else was there? Henry Morgan was there.
I wish you'd use somebody else. I really do.
Well, you were there.
As a matter of fact, Mr. Ehrlich, I lived through this.
Well,
barely lived through it.
It's a very bad situation. You're now guilty of a conspiracy. Now, if you say...
You didn't have to join anything, you know.
Nothing.
If you just went to a dinner, which happened to me, somebody would say, are you for middle-income housing, we'll say. And that was pretty close to what it was. I said, yeah, I guess so. He said, would you come to a dinner, the thing? 10 years later, some brilliant man comes around and says, oh, you went to a dinner for the thing for the income, the housing. I said, yep, and I'd do it again. He'd say, well, there was a communist organization sponsoring that. I said, well, why didn't you tell me 10 years ago? Now I know that too, now, but when you tried to do good, you could get killed. I was for the housing. I didn't know who was.
Well, this is exactly why this Fifth Amendment has become
it's dangerous.
Become muddled, and because if somebody takes it, you are guilty because you take it.
Sure.
He's a Fifth Amendment, they say, and that's it, and it kills you.
Well, as Mr. Ehrlich said in the beginning, the fact that they call you in.
Why are you there?
Now you're in trouble.
Why are you there? That's all.
Now, when they had this, I want to say ridiculous hearing, and I'll call it that, down in Washington about television ratings.
Oh, yes.
They asked me to go down. Now, I said, what would happen if I would refuse to go? I said, they said, well, they would issue a subpoena.
That's right.
So I went down to Washington. I talked about it on the show. For this, they were investigating television ratings. Now, nothing has ever come of that. People have been familiar with television ratings for ever since radio has existed. I don't know what they think they were going to do about it. They exist. And we went through a whole lot of stuff. He says, did you ever lose shows because of a television rating? And the naivete of the question, I said, yeah. Did you know other people lost them? I said, yes, Senator, I did. And they went on and on and on. And when it was all over, nothing ever happened about it.
No,
but if you don't
except
go...
that they got some publicity.
A lot of publicity. It was on television.
And then there's another thing you should remember hereafter, Johnny. Never volunteer to go. You want me, you subpoena me. In addition to...
In other words, rather than accepting, I should have been subpoenaed.
That's right.
Well, I just
Because
figured
then
if
you're
I
brought
didn't
in there against your will and desire. So you're brought in.
Ah,
So you're not voluntarily going in there. And
I
then when
see.
you're brought in, you may exercise such rights as you have under the law. I wouldn't do that. Because you might have...
I had a
some
lawyer.
difficulty.
I had a lawyer with me. He got 20 years. I haven't seen him since. He's still not... No. All right. We'll do this. I'll tell you the truth. It was that I wasn't under investigation for anything, but I was so nervous. I was really so nervous. I had nothing to hide. We were talking about silly ratings, and I felt like a kid in front of the high school principal. Because I didn't know what I could add to this, you know. Well, we'll do this now.
And you didn't accomplish anything either.
I'm sure it accomplished nothing. A few words from a lady in the house who contends she can go anywhere men go. Well, almost anywhere.
Gentlemen. There is a lady in the house. What's she doing here?
I have a right to be here. I have a right to be anywhere you are.
Hey.
Well, almost anywhere. Haven't you noticed? It's no longer just a man's world. After all, if we can fill man-tailored jobs, we can fill man-tailored shirts, too. It's a Lady Manhattan. All the things you like about your Manhattan shirt, I like about mine. It's man-tailored for a woman. And that's the difference.
And what a difference.
And another thing, it's no iron Dacron and cotton. Comes in 26 colors. Perfect for work, play, or traveling. And it's only $5. Any questions?
Who'd ever think we'd both be wearing the same kind of shirt?
You don't mind, do you?
Well, in other words, you believe if the Fifth Amendment is not a good law or it's not serving their purpose, then we should get rid of the law. The people should write to their legislators and say, let us get rid of the Fifth Amendment.
Well,
but if you do that, then aren't you right back where you started again? Then you go in front of a committee and you must answer.
No, but I said that in connection with enforcing the law.
Mhm.
If the Fifth Amendment is the law, then you should have the right to use your right under that.
Without being...
Without being condemned because you avail yourself of that right. Now, remember this, Johnny, that we speak of our forefathers who gave us this Constitution and gave us all of these rights as Americans. Well, our forefathers didn't do anything of the kind. The men who wrote, and I'm referring to the men who wrote the Constitution. The men who wrote the Constitution wrote a beautiful, lasting document. But the people said, we will not accept this Constitution unless and until you guarantee to us these rights. Don't force us to testify against ourselves. Give us a lawyer when we go to court. Supreme Court of the United States has just discovered that lately. It's been there for many years. Give us a right to trial by jury. Don't take our property away from us without taking care of the cost of it, without going to court. Don't destroy our right to freedom of speech. Don't destroy our right to freedom of thought. Don't destroy our right to freedom of religion. It was the common man. These people sitting here, all of us, in those historic days, who insisted on these rights. Now, we fought for them. We've fought wars since then in the name of these rights. Now, if you're going to condemn us for using them, then let's get rid of them. Let's go right back to where we started before the American Revolution and say, well, shucks, let's throw the whole thing out. This whole thing hasn't worked.
One note you had in the book there, which is interesting, because a lot of people say this when you say the Fifth Amendment. They say, well, it has protected a lot of gangsters, you know, or criminals. Probably true, but the point you made, it has also protected a lot of innocent people.
It has protected the innocent. Now, the basic philosophy of our jurisprudence, Johnny, is that it's... you may let 1,000 guilty men go, but don't convict one innocent man.
That's here. If being on time is one of your big problems, you'll feel for the characters in these things from Illinois.
When a
cigarette means a lot, you get lots more pleasure from L&M, the rich flavor cigarette with the modern all-white filter. It's the rich flavor leaf that does it. L&M has actually more of this longer-aged and extra-pure tobacco leaf than even some unfiltered cigarettes. L&M's got more balance.
More balance in the blend.
More flavor.
More flavor in the smoke.
More taste.
More taste through the filter. Lots more pleasure from L&M.
And L&M's filter is a modern filter. All white inside and outside. L&M's the filter cigarette for people who really like rich flavor. More balance, more flavor, more taste. Get lots more pleasure from L&M.